Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Now, as I talk more and more about Maitreya, his priorities, who he is, his mission, I also want to touch upon Jesus' role in this. Now, my background is Christianity. My family is Christian and so forth. If I was Muslim, I'd have more of a connection with the Islam faith, or if I was Jewish, I would the same thing with Judaism, or Hindu for Hindus. If I was a Hindu, I'd be more conditioned as a Hindu, right? So when I talk about these things, of course, I'm kind of skewing it a little heavier on the view of Christianity, but that's only because my background is based in that. I've always tried to live my life according to, like WWJD, what would Jesus do? That kind of thing. Whether I lived up to it or not is a whole other question entirely. I can go on to days about the times that I didn't live up to that, but, at least I'm honest about it, I guess. But, what is Jesus' role in all this? Well, historically, 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem and had his mission for the 33 years that he lived, died on the cross and so forth, his mission was to teach the people at that time about the laws of life based on their understanding of the world and the universe and their own personal nature. He spoke very symbolically so people could understand it. What you sow shall you reap. He was talking about the need for harmlessness, about what you put out, you get back, the law of karma. He talked about love, of course, turn thy cheek, where, forgive them for they know not what they do and so forth, where people like us probably just say, they don't know what the beat they're talking about, but that was Jesus' view of it, right? He was a much more loving person than everybody else. He demonstrated for the first time in human history love in its perfection, just as the Gautama Buddha was demonstrating wisdom in its perfection for the first time in humanity. Now, these disciples, like Gautama Buddha and like Jesus, were not the Christ and the Buddha respectfully. They were disciples, advanced members of humanity. And we're going to talk more and more about what a disciple is and the path of discipleship. But for right now, they were disciples of one or other of these masters of wisdom. Now, Maitreya had already been a master for hundreds of thousands of years. He was actually the first of this group, of our group of humanity, to achieve what we're all striving to achieve, which is to become a master, whether we're aware of it or not. To know moment to moment who you are as a soul, to manifest that divinity moment to moment as a soul. He was the first to achieve that. We're still in the process of learning how to even touch on how to do that. Now, the Christians, when Jesus was there, he was talking to a relatively small group of people. Of course, he had his group of 12 around him, and he had another group behind that were probably a little closer than the average people that he was talking to in the towns that he went and spoke to, but it was a relatively small group. And he spoke for a time and he taught for a time. But he was also there to inaugurate the then new age of the age of Pisces. Now, cosmically, everything is energy. We're made up of energy. The world's made up of energy. Einstein talked about this even. Science is starting to kind of understand a little bit of this truth. But cosmically, as our sun moves around the cosmos, it moves out of alignment and into an alignment of one or other of the constellations of the zodiac. Now, I'm not particularly fond of the astrology of today, but there's an esoteric side of astrology, which is truth, which it does affect the consciousness of humanity. Now, the symbol for the age of Pisces is the fish. Well, I mean, the symbol of the fish appeared all throughout the New Testament. I mean, you can go on for quite a bit talking about that, expounding upon that symbol. But the energies of Pisces are the energies of the individualism. The notion and the idea, I think, therefore I am, or be thyself, or be yourself. Those concepts didn't exist 2,000 or so plus years ago. It wasn't until the energies of Pisces came and started to affect humanity in the way that it did that those concepts and those ideas came to the forefront of humanity. If we could go back in time, you would be talking to people that didn't have those kind of ideas. It'd be foreign to. They wouldn't even know that they didn't know about what a strong individual is. Be thyself. What are you talking about? So superstitious, so fearful they were of life in general. That's why it didn't take much to rule those people at that time. You just needed the people who had a strong individual sense of self, but yet maybe weren't compassionate and didn't have the people's best interests in heart, were the ones that ruled them, with an iron fist a lot of the times. The other aspect of the age of Pisces is the Renaissance. That is a direct result of the energy of Pisces. Now, everything that has a beginning has an end. So, it started out, it got stronger and stronger to where it peaked, 1,000 or so years ago, and then it started to kind of recede. And our solar system and our sun started to move out of alignment of Pisces more into the energy of Aquarius, or in alignment of that constellation, which the energy of Aquarius is synthesis, brotherhood, cooperation, sharing, groups. So rather than individuals going out there and making the changes themselves, groups will do it. We're already starting to see more and more influence of the energies of Aquarius. The reactionary forces of, let's say, our political structures, the conservatives or the Republicans or whatever country you're in, that has your own conservative party, those are responding and trying to hold on to the energies of Pisces, where the more progressive parties are responding and looking to and trying to use more of the energies of Aquarius. And that's where we're kind of in the process of it. So Jesus helped to inaugurate that age of Pisces. It was hoped about 500 years ago that the masters would come back in another 1,000 years. That's when they thought humanity would first be ready to understand what they were talking about and actually use the teachings that the masters have available to teach us. But it had to be hastened. It had to be moved forward because of the invention of the atomic bomb. Because we could destroy ourselves, which is another great discovery of the age of Pisces, that we're so separate from each other that, we could kill off a whole segment of society, a whole country, and it wouldn't affect us, which isn't true, but that's what we think is true. Or, hey, you know what, if I can't have it, no one's going to have it. Then boom, we're just going to destroy everything. And so it's bringing us to the point of self-destruction, of course, right? Now, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, died on the cross. He was being used. I'm sorry. Before that, the energy of the Christ of Maitreya, the words of the Christ were telepathically sent through Jesus. And we'll talk more about the life of Jesus in other videos. But for now, we'll just kind of touch on it. And Jesus has been working from behind the scenes along with all the other masters for the last 2,000 years, working to help build the time when humanity would be ready for the return of the Christ and the reemergence and the externalization of the masters of wisdom. That's what he's been working on. Now his focus is mainly on the church. When Maitreya comes out, well, he's already out, but when Maitreya finally declares himself on the day of declaration and people really know who he is, Jesus will be one of the first masters to be introduced. And you can ask him, all the questions you've been wanting to ask Jesus. He'll be there right in front of you. But his focus will mainly be on the churches, especially the Christian churches. Purifying a lot of the folklore and the myths of the Bible, clarifying more of the symbols and what he meant when he said those things. Jesus is a great master. He's working moment to moment alongside all the other masters in Maitreya, has a deep, deep, deep concern for the problems of the world, just as all the other masters do. He's working moment to moment to help save our planet. But Jesus, in and of himself, A, never claimed to be the Son of God, and B, never claimed to be able to save anybody. That all came in after. Those distortions came in after Jesus had already passed away. I mean, how could you expect something that was not even written down at the time that he spoke it? It was written down after he had passed away and translated in all these different languages by all these different people who were not necessarily the most educated and most pure-minded people, to be totally pure and without any kind of distortion. It's just naive to think that that's the case. Now, there are a lot of truths in the Bible, that Paul talked about, that Peter talked about, that a lot of the early Christians like Origen talked about. Some of them were taken back out because it was against the official policies of the church, and it went against what they were thinking was the best interest for themselves, such as reincarnation, such as the need to share, such as the fact that Jesus never said he was the Son of God. Of course, he's a son of man. And as these masters come out more and more, and as people are taught the truth about Jesus' life and his mission, it will become more and more people will understand that they have been misled for so long, and have misled other people for so long about the reality and the truth of who Jesus really was. So we'll talk more about it as time goes on, but I just wanted to kind of touch on it. So thank you so much for letting me share my side of the story. And as always, SOP, save our planet. That should be the mantra from now on. Thank you so much and have a great day.